Welcome into episode number 211 of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real _G Warner. And as I start recording, of course, I see that my battery's dying on my laptop. So I'm going to do something real quick. But anyway, we'll get started on this episode. It is Sunday, the day of. I know there's not a ton of time to listen to this, but there is only one match left in the Gold Cup. And for those of you that have been following around throughout this pretty mediocre tournament, not necessarily for me. I feel like it's gone fairly well betting wise, but certainly not the most talented group of, especially from the US put out there, Canada as well, sending a B team. All right, we're plugged in. I think we're good to go. Not a lot of good stuff in that tournament, but there's money to be made. And I think two teams that actually took this tournament seriously made it to the final. And so we got something that seems like it matters to these two nations. So that's important. Also going to cover in the second part of the show futures for the Women's World Cup. I'm not really sure how much demand there is out there, but there's not a lot going on this summer. If you're not a baseball bettor, then I don't know how much time you can spend really prepping for football, college football, pro football. It's probably every second you spend is worth it. But I'm going to go over some futures odds in that one and see if there's any sort of demand for that. If there is, please slide in some DMs at the real _G Warner on Twitter or Patreon or anywhere you can find me. Please send me a note that you liked it, or if you don't care, that's also meaningful to me as well. But gonna have an ultimate best bet end of show. Also have a promo code for pregame to save 20% off. So want to keep that all out there as well. And let's see, is there anything else I have to do before I get into this? I don't think so. So all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced use is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So now that we have a little more money in our account, let's go through the Gold Cup right now. I'll save the ultimate best bet to the end of the show. But certainly want to lead off the Gold Cup, especially because it's kicking off in a couple hours. Mexico and Panama. As I've said this entire tournament, I've been giving Mexico a quarter goal for home field advantage, home pitch advantage, home court advantage, whatever you want to call it. As I did for the U.S., similar, but I do feel like in a lot of American sporting events in the United States, I'll put it that way, it's probably better because South Americans don't love when Americans, when people from the United States call the U.S. America. Anyway, in the United States, Mexico, I feel like has brought more fans. They care more about their national team, despite the struggles that there have been. And maybe the United States fan base hasn't been as interested because they sent a B team here. But Mexico kind of were in the deep depths, like the worst it's been in a long time. Some pundits were saying one of the worst losses in their history was their shellacking at the hands of the United States in the CONCACAF Gold Cup or CONCACAF Nations League. There's so many things going on this summer. But Mexico fired their manager, sacked their manager, and switched to a new one. He's trying to keep his job. I think winning the Gold Cup will probably keep Jaime Lozano in place, at least for a little while, until they decide to sack their next manager. But I don't think they want to do 4 in a calendar year or beyond to a 4th manager in 2023. So this is a big step for him, for the club or the nation, I guess, as well. And they welcome in Panama, who really sent a strong team, the same exact, I think, team that went to the CONCACAF Nations League semifinal and lost, and ended up losing the 3rd place game as well. To I believe it was to Mexico, and they are playing again here. And I think there's a fair amount. Yes, a manager change for Mexico has definitely altered things a little bit, but I think really what Lozano brought in was more about the belief and confidence, respect, or just I don't know, a firefighter mentality. You see that in a lot of times in the like the Italian leagues and the European top 5 leagues that have relegation candidates, that they look like they're just circling the drain. They bring in some new voice and somehow things get changed a little bit. New manager bounces, they call it. It certainly seemed to have worked so far for Mexico. But I think part of this, and what you'll eventually hear about my handicap, is that Mexico has brought a really good team. They're one of the best, if not at the top, the best talented side in CONCACAF. Probably was years ago. I think the U.S., United States have claimed that, and Canada certainly is closing in from the far way off from the previous. But Mexico brought a really good team and they got to play some really bad ones. That certainly inspired confidence, but it's also, I think, made them really overpriced. So currently Mexico, a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Looks like it's trending towards a full goal of insurance, which does interest me quite a bit. The over-under here is 2.25, juiced heavily to the under. It looked like it was going to fall to 2, like the last Mexican national team game did against Jamaica. But it's still been hanging in there, and actually juice is improving a little bit at Bet Online right now, -122. It was as high as -125. And from where I'm sitting with this one, I haven't seen +1 in a while at Bet Online, unfortunately, because I do, if you're interested in backing underdogs, which is pretty much my game in this sport, it does matter to get a good price, and +1 I think is worth paying the juice for, as opposed to taking that 3/4 of a goal. Not a huge difference because you lose half a unit, but you do lose half a unit on a single goal loss, where you get all that returned to you. And if you had the +1, Panama currently +1 at Bet Online, -133, a little more expensive than I'd want it, but wouldn't be the worst case, and especially if you're looking for something to play on Sunday night. So what I was trying to get into was that the Mexicans really brought a really strong team and have done very well, but it was against really poor competition. I still don't believe that Mexico has a great goal scoring ability. They struck very early against a Jamaican defense, which has been problematic and really has kept them from the World Cup and that kind of qualifying state for a long time. And they really took advantage of that early, kind of punched the team in the mouth as Jamaica looked like they were trying to get into it. Had 2 players collide, I believe, and then that left a player open the box. Great cross, great control, but looked like had way too much space. But that kind of speaks of the Jamaican defense. Now, I don't think Mexico will have that luxury tonight with Panama, who have really played great defense and honestly have been one of the best. I think probably have been the best team in the Gold Cup this tournament. It started with a good test against Costa Rica, where that was 2 sides that were really jockeying for first place in the group. It was an easy win, certainly off of a Costa Rican side that's aging, but I think Panama looked good and made them look old. And that's important for trying to handicap what's going to happen in this one. I do think that in watching the Panamanians face the United States in San Diego, yes, they played extra time and had a penalty shootout that they needed to get through in order to get past the U.S., but they did take a lead. They pretty much controlled the ball the entire first half. Were a lot more defensive, I think, in the second. Maybe they were a little bit more tired. The U.S. certainly had a big crowd advantage and a home crowd and a home country to benefit them. But I do feel that Panama are very well prepared for this matchup. Mexico is likely to have a lot of the ball, but they haven't done a lot with it going back to the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. One of the most disappointing qualifyings, I think, for them maybe ever. And then also were pretty bad in the World Cup in Qatar as well. So I don't really have a lot of belief in Mexico. They've certainly had some good scoring games like they did against Jamaica and got a late add-on goal at the end to send the game over to get that third goal in stoppage time as Jamaica were just throwing absolutely everything forward. I think that's probably a similar situation here, as if Mexico can take a lead, especially an early one, that'll open the game and put them in a much better position. But I don't think Panama is going to be as naive as Jamaica were. I think they're going to do everything they can to try to stop Mexico. And from what I've seen, Panama do have some talented players in that side, and they could certainly threaten Mexico. I think Memo Ochoa has been great, but is also 38 years old, and all of that veteran skill and ability and experience doesn't really always keep him in the best positions. He knows where to be, but he certainly, if there's like a ball that kind of was lofted deep that got past the defenders and then Memo Ochoa has to come out and make an athletic play, I question his ability to do that. And I feel like there's gonna be a lot of opportunities for that because Mexico are gonna be pushing up the field, trying, I think, in vain to try to score goals, because they know that they need to have numbers advantages. Crosses into the box don't seem to be that successful to me in this matchup. And I think Panama are in a really great position to even try to get one of those sucker punch goals themselves. Maybe not after 1:30, but just to get one, get on the board, and then hold on for dear life. I think that's a very good scenario, especially for the under as well. So my leans and my interest in this one are to Panama, getting 3/4 of a goal right now, getting odds +106 at Bet Online. So if you don't have a Panama ticket yet, I would wait to see if a +1 pops better than this -133 that we're currently seeing. And then it's up to you and kind of your risk profile profiles. It is hard to win bets when you're laying minus or eating minus 133 worth of juice. Makes it really hard to be profitable long term. But I do think that there's a few times where it's worth it, and that's getting a +1 in a soccer match, which is a very, very likely final score or final difference. Now, also like the total under 2.25, that also looks like it's getting cheaper for what I'm seeing, at least the juice on the under. And so like both of those, I'll go through, I guess, instead of the alternate numbers, we also have a to lift the trophy. Mexico currently -400, Panama +320. I've been tracking this week. Let's see if I can pull that up quickly so I can tell you where that's been. So it was as high as 400 when I first saw it on the 13th. It's now the 16th of July, in case everyone's paying attention. And it looks like +320 is the highest that I've seen on Panama so far. So that tells me that there's a good chance if this to advance number, or to lift the trophy number, is climbing, there's probably some money coming in on the Mexicans, as you would expect. The much bigger nation, and a lot of the public likes to bet favorites. So I wouldn't rush into a lift the trophy Panama bet just yet, nor the +1, nor really the under either. If you got a reasonably juiced +1 at a PPH or something like a bookie that you're doing, that you might be a little bit softer of a market than what you'll see at BetOnline or other places across the offshores, I would recommend trying to grab a +1. If you can get a -125, I think that's probably the best you can do. But we'll see what happens with that one, of course. And now I think it's time. Also want to shout out, so I didn't do a lot of the marketing yet, but I want to shout out my newest Patreon subscriber. And I really appreciate the group that's gone over there and kind of testing out a new setup, a lot of things for me right now. But welcome to the team, Joe Segredo. Thanks for coming in. I hope I pronounced that right. But welcome in. Anything that you got, and certainly more Patreon subscribers. I'm happy to shout you out if you come on board. I think it's a really great opportunity for a lot of my subscribers at pregame, because you get everything I got all there in one place at a very affordable price. So check it out, patreon.com/thereal_G Warner. So now I'm going to move to the Women's World Cup. I'll come back to the Gold Cup for my ultimate best bet, because that is the most actionable situation or area right now. So United States women have won the last two Women's World Cups, have won huge battles in the courts as well for equal pay and things of that nature. So I think life is good right now for the U.S. There's a ton of talent, a ton of great players that are all fighting for spots, and it seemed like it was very competitive just to even get selected to go to the New Zealand, Australia, and other side of the world for the World Cup. And I do think playing far away is a benefit, certainly for the better teams. I guess one concern is, you see the United States are currently the favorite to win at +2 to 1, +200. Australia come in the 5th position, and everyone seemingly on that side of the world is playing a different type of time zone, hemisphere, all that sort of stuff, as a lot of the other big favorites are in Germany, Spain, England, the US, as I already mentioned, in reverse order, plus France, Sweden, and then we have Brazil, and then on that same side is Japan. So it seems like a lot, as you would expect, for the most, I think, developed footballing countries. A little surprised to see Brazil as far down, but I can't say I follow the women's game too much. And maybe if there's a lot of demand for this episode, maybe I'll start following a lot closer. But so the United States are the favorite at +2 to 1, as I said, or +200, 2 to 1 odds. England +450, Spain 5 to 1. Germany 7 to 1, then Australia 10 to 1, France 14 to 1, Sweden 20 to 1, and Brazil 25 to 1. Takes a while to get. I don't even know where New Zealand are. They are at 250 to 1. So that doesn't seem like home hemisphere advantage is going to mean much in this tournament, but I want to put that out there, because you always got to worry about the home team, though. As we saw from the Qataris in Qatar 2022, or the World Cup this winter, they were a disaster, and maybe home field doesn't matter, or doesn't mean too much, as we also saw South Africans not really do anything with it in 2010. I think you could say certainly the Brazilians did fine themselves, and then until getting absolutely murdered by the Germans. But then also It's probably a sensitive thing to say. I shouldn't say too often, and then we also saw the Russians really outperform and run faster and farther than anyone else. I think with the use of steroids. So we'll see. But the United States are the favorite. Hard to pick against them, I think, just based on the amount of top talent that the United States seem to have and the forward-thinking nation that the United States are. I think that's certainly also helped as well. To reach the final, US, England, Spain, Germany, France, Australia, doesn't really change too much. And I think this is kind of a little toe in the water, see how interested people are in this type of episode, because I don't really have a ton to go into besides maybe mentioning Alex Morgan as the top goal scorer, 5-1 odds. Fox Sports, who has the coverage for the Women's World Cup here in the United States, built like a Statue of Liberty modeled after her, which seems like a lot of pressure, but I guess there's a lot of reasons for her to be the face of United States women's soccer. So that's my little run through for the Women's World Cup, just addressing, I guess, what numbers are out there. If people are interested, let me know. I'm happy to go deeper through it. I mean, as the Gold Cup is kind of wrapping up, there's not a ton of soccer stuff going on. Debating or pretty much planning to do single episodes on each of the top 5 European leagues that I follow the closest, with futures discussions, also probably week 1 or match day 1 lines, Spieltag 1 or Jornada 1, whatever you call it in the various countries, because ultimately those lines are out. I've made them and am tracking them, and I'm trying to figure out when it's worth stepping into them. So I might as well talk to you all about it. But we'll get to the ultimate best bet. Want to also mention, if I could find where this all went, I want to mention the pregame.com promo code. Use your promo code REAL20 or REAL20, good for 20% off for this for 7 days from this podcast release. Good for grabbing some of my stuff there. I have college football win totals. I will be adding an NFL win total somewhat soon. Also other great handicappers at pregame. My baseball co-host Scott Seidenberg, college basketball co-host AJ Hoffman. I'm sure they have tons of packages out there across any sport you'd like to pay a little bit closer attention to, because when you have money on it, it's always a lot more interesting. And of course, we're also here trying to make everyone rich so we don't have to go to work 7 days a week, whatever the number is. So I'll go back to I already mentioned Patreon, so I guess that's out there. Well, I'll be doing a baseball pod tonight, so look forward to that. Hopefully you're looking forward to it. And then I guess it's time to give the ultimate best bet, which is something I'm trying to put on YouTube and all these other things as well. I'm not sure how great that reach has been, but we're doing it. So it's about time, and let's make sure everything doesn't fall apart. Hi, this is real_G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find this episode. I'm probably on there with that name. And this is the ultimate best bet for betting the pitch number 211211. And I'm going to go with Panama. I'm waiting for them to hit a single goal underdog, because I do think that they're going to make this a really tough match on Mexico. I think they're going to sit back defensively and really force the Mexicans to create with a +1 in your pocket. I think that's super important. They looked great and literally delivered us the best type of result in the United States previous round, a goalless draw, which covered the under and the side on Panama. So I'm actually interested in probably going to be backing both of those for today's Gold Cup final. I think it's kind of splitting hairs. I think there's a lot of value in under 2.25 as well. I don't want to see that hit 2, so I'd make sure you grab that before you get there. But grab Panama +1 if you see it. Pay a little bit more juice for it. I think it's worth it just for that little bit extra safety on the Gold Cup final. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch number, I think it was 212. Who knows what number we're on? I guess it doesn't really matter to any of y'all. You'll see it when it's up there. But thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in more Women's World Cup coverage, please let me know. Slide in the DMs, at me on Twitter, real_G Warner on Instagram, wherever you find me, feel free. And check out the patreon.com/real_G Warner. I highly recommend that if you're into betting all the sports that I'm covering, because there are a lot on there and there are a lot of opportunities to see what I'm doing at an affordable price. So thanks for tuning in. And I will talk to you all on the MLB pod tonight, but we'll talk to you all soon, and we'll come up with what we're doing next week, whether it's another Women's World Cup focused episode or just jumping into the top 5 European soccer leagues. I know there's demand for those. So have a great evening, afternoon, wherever you are, whatever time zone. Holler if you got anything, but it's been fun, and I will talk to you all very soon.